So, for as long as I can remember, we've been taught to see the economy in just two ways, right? You've got the tiny details, and then you've got the huge national picture. But what if I told you the real action, the place where all the important stuff happens, is actually in a middle ground we've been totally blind to?
Okay, let's kick things off with this really powerful idea from the economist John Kenneth Galbraith. He basically said, hey, splitting the economy into these two boxes, it's not just a simple way to look at things, it's actually a problem. He believed it was hiding the real reasons for huge issues like unemployment, that the whole story of how economies actually grow and change was just falling through the cracks. And that really is the big question we're tackling today, isn't it? If micro and macro aren't the whole story, then what is? What's the missing link? What's that connective tissue that's been right there hiding in plain sight all along?
All right, so to find that missing piece, we've got to first dig into the problem itself. Let's talk about this massive divide in how we've always thought about economics.
I mean, it's literally Econ 101, right? You've got microeconomics, which is all about the little stuff. You, me, individual companies. Think about how you decide whether to buy a coffee or how a single company prices its products. And then, way on the other side, you've got macroeconomics. That's the big picture stuff. GDP, inflation, unemployment for the whole country.
But here's the thing, that two-part view, some have called it a conceptual straitjacket. And I think that's perfect. It creates this huge, glaring blind spot right in the middle. Because think about it, it's in that gap between the individual person and the entire national system that the real magic happens. That's where industries are born, new tech spread like wildfire, and real, lasting change actually takes root. We've basically been ignoring the economy's engine room. Okay, so if we've got this blind spot, what's the fix? Well, we need to introduce a totally new level of thinking, a concept that can finally bridge that gap and let us see the whole picture. And here's the solution, laid out perfectly. Instead of just two parts, we need to think in three levels. Micro, that's still our individual players, the entrepreneurs, the small businesses. Macro is still the big overarching system. But that game-changing new piece in the middle, that's the meso-level. This is the world of industries, of business networks, of entire regions. It's where everything actually connects, interacts, and evolves. So how do you even begin to analyze this meso-level? Well, you look for something called rules in population. Now, the best way to think about this is like the economic DNA of a system. It's not just one person's habit or one company's strategy. No, it's the shared stuff, the routines, the technologies, the norms, the ways of doing business that get copied and passed around between firms. This is the code that shapes an entire industry from the ground up. And this idea of the economy as a living thing, it's more than just a cool metaphor. The business strategist James Moore made this point brilliantly. He said, thinking about business like a biological ecosystem is just incredibly useful. It helps you see how new ideas, these rules we're talking about, compete, adapt, and spread, almost exactly like genes in an ecosystem. And that's the key takeaway here. The economy isn't some static, predictable machine. It's a living, breathing, evolving system. All right, so this is all a really fascinating theory, right? But the big question is, does it actually hold up in the real world? Let's put it to the test. Let's apply it to one of the biggest, most complicated challenges we're all facing right now. The clean energy transition, it's the perfect case study, really, because you've got these massive top-down government policies, but success also hinges on millions of individual businesses and consumers changing what they do. So the question is, can this macro, meso, micro framework help us untangle all that and maybe even speed things up? Let's look at the EU's big push for clean energy. At the macro level, you have these huge, ambitious policies like the EU Green Deal. Way down at the micro level, you've got individual clean tech startups trying to make a go of it. But look, the real action is in the meso level. This is where you find the stuff that connects everybody. We're talking regional innovation hubs, industry alliances, research programs. This is that connective tissue that makes the whole transition actually work. Now, to really see why this meso level is so darn important, let's zoom in even further. We're going to look at a specific region in Greece, because this is where the framework starts to reveal hidden problems, the kind of stuff that a simple macro or micro view would just completely miss. Whoa, okay, get a load of this number. Over 85%. That's how many of the energy firms in this region are what we call micro enterprises. We're talking 10 employees or fewer.
That one single fact has absolutely huge implications for whether this system can actually change.
And this chart just hammers the point home. Look at that. Almost 2/3 of the firms have 5 people or less. When your whole system is made up of these tiny, separate units, it's incredibly hard for new ideas, new tech, and new business models to spread. You know those economic DNA rules we were talking about? They just can't get any traction. So this structure leads to a very specific kind of behavior, which has this awesome name, a monad-centric physiology. I love that. It basically means these tiny firms act like little isolated atoms. They're totally self-contained, they don't really collaborate, and they tend to just stick with the old ways of doing things. Because they're not plugged into a dynamic meso-level network, those new, better rules for clean energy have nowhere to go. The whole system just gets stuck in the mud.
Okay, so we've used our new framework to diagnose the problem. Now comes the most important part. How do we actually use this insight to build better solutions? And this, right here, is the big payoff. When policymakers can finally see all 3 levels at once, macro, meso, and micro, they can design policies that actually make sense together. You don't get these big macro policies that accidentally kill off small-scale innovation, and you don't get these little micro incentives that just fizzle out because there's no meso-level network there to support them. So here's a real-world proposal for how this could work. They're called Institutes of Local Development Innovation, or ILDs. And just look at how this thing is designed to work across all 3 levels. At the macro level, it gets its support from national strategies and funding. Then, at the meso level, its job is to actively connect all the key players. We're talking banks, chambers of commerce, business incubators, to build that missing connective tissue. And then at the micro level, it offers direct, hands-on help to the firms themselves. And maybe the coolest part of this whole idea is what it does at the micro level, a business clinic model. I just love this concept. It stops treating struggling businesses like failures and starts treating them like patients who need care. It offers free, expert help to guide these small, isolated firms in creating modern business plans and adopting new technology. It's basically an intervention designed to give their economic DNA a direct upgrade. So you can see, this whole macro, meso, micro idea isn't just some dry academic theory. It is a powerful new lens for seeing the world and for building much, much better solutions. It gives us a real toolkit for understanding the complex systems that are all around us. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. This isn't just about energy, is it? Think about all the other huge challenges we face. Healthcare, education, supply chains. Where's the missing meso level in those systems? And just imagine what we could unlock if we finally started paying attention to it.